NYWalker or NYWalker is a data collection tool that allows researchers to capture the geographical data they discover in their object of inquiry, typically a novel. It is designed to be quick and easy to use, taking advantage of an opinionated user interface and a local database of geographical locations. These streamline the process of manual data entry. NYWalker does not attempt to compete with big data geoparsing tools that use named entity recognition. Instead, it is an example of tiny digital humanities, a practice based on maintaining a connection to the aesthetic experience of a specific text. In this demo, we will walk through a few sentences of an invented text and add the references to instances of geographical places that are mentioned in this invented text. In closing, we will see how one can export the data to make further use of them in a geospatial visualization and analysis environment. In NYWalker, instances of places mentioned are collected in a book. For this demo, we are using a made-up novel called NYWalker by Patrick Dignam. As the application shows, no instances are recorded yet, but we can already see that every instance has a page, an order, which is its order on the page, the place referred to in the instance, and a final special column. We've arbitrarily decided, from having already read the novel, that it might be analytically useful to keep track of who is speaking at any moment in this novel. So we call this column Speaker. Now we are ready to add instances, so let's look at the first sentences of this pretend novel. The skin of the Big Apple peeling away, on the island of Manhattan, thousands of miles from Lucknow, and within sight of Avenue C, the sign on the front door of the Museum of Manicured Miniature Minotaurs, beautifully rendered in Italianate script, mentally prepared for its daily, except Mondays, somersault to open. Having flipped, the sign announced to the whole city, "All right, you New Yorkers, the Museum is ready for your patronage." This passage is clearly geographically rich, but what here counts as an instance that we would record? Manhattan is obvious, but what about the Big Apple? What about the museum which does not exist? How can Avenue C be reduced to a point? And so on. The rationale for what counts as an instance to be recorded is arbitrary, but consistent. For example, Big Apple counts because it refers rather clearly to a place we know, New York City. On the other hand, though city does the same, it is not capitalized, so it gets ignored. Similarly, even though the museum is fictional, it is still a place, and therefore the text refers to it, meaning it's an instance. Italianate and New Yorkers do not count, as one is an adjective and one is a demonym. They don't in and of themselves refer to places. Finally, all the data collected by NYWalker are point data, so reducing a street like Avenue C to a point should strike one as no less odd than reducing, say, New York City itself to just one point. As a result, we count 6 instances here. The first instance, Big Apple, is rather straightforward to add. It is the narrator who is speaking it, so we add that as the speaker. The same holds true for Manhattan. Note that the page number remains the same, but the order is increased by 1. Similarly, note that the previous instance now appears beside the new entry, for easy access if we made a mistake. Third instance, Lucknow, is not already in the NYWalker database, so we add it. NYWalker uses geonames as the gold standard gazetteer, and it finds Lucknow with no difficulty. We add the place to the database. Now we can add the instance. Next is the Museum of Manicured Miniature Minotaurs. We learn over the course of the novel that it is an alphabet city, but we never learn any more than that. In adding the place, here the scholar has 2 options. Leave the coordinates blank and rate the place as unfindable, or speculate on where it could be, and reduce the confidence as much as possible. Oh no, we forgot to include the reference to Avenue C. GeoNames is very poor with street names, even if we bias the results. As such, NYWalker offers a fallback to Google Maps, which is much better at handling streets. If we don't like where Google Maps drops the marker for Avenue C, we can reposition it in the system by just clicking on the map. Now we add the instance, but we note that it is the fourth in order on the page, not the fifth. Museum is a reference to a place already saved, but it uses a term not yet in the database. So we choose the place, but then type in the new place name in text. Because this reference is spoken by the sign, the special field is changed to read museum sign. Once a new name for a place is added to the system, it becomes available for use again. Now we can look at the list of instances recorded. We see that the reference to the museum was pushed back because of our manual intervention with the reference to Avenue C. And on the side, we can also see a map showing the places recorded. The buttons here give options for downloading. The instances are each specific instance as its own object, meaning instances that refer to the same place are stacked atop each other. Places collapses the instances together and gives only places, with a new attribute, instance count, that describes how many times a place was referred to. Finally, the zip of special CSVs breaks apart the places by the different values of the special field. So in our case, there would be one file for all the places the narrator mentions and one for all the places the sign does. That covers capturing data. But let's look a bit more closely at what is possible with the data once they are captured. Here, instead, we will make use of real-world data, namely Patti Smith's 2010 memoir, Just Kids. As we can see, with 841 instances, or almost 3 per page, Just Kids is very geographically rich. Most of the geographical information is centered around Manhattan, with 152 total places mentioned in New York City. We can click on the Send to Carto button to send all of the place data into Carto.com's online geographical database. This process can take 10 minutes or so. As we can see, unlike with the NYWalker data, the points here remain distinct. We enable scroll wheel zooming, which lets us get to New York City quickly. Now we can stylize the dots to begin a process of analysis. First, we will change the size of the dots to match how often the places are mentioned. There are different ways of distributing the dots, but we'll stick with simple quantiles for now. We can see that the place mentioned the most is mentioned 60 times, and on average, a place is mentioned 2.82 times. Next, we will change the colors of each dot to match the value in the average instance page percentage column, which gives a rough sense of when in the book a certain place comes to prominence. Finally, we will add the pop-ups with a few fields enabled. If we click on the dot corresponding to New York City, we see that it's mentioned 40 times, but the average instance page percentage is 60%. Given the number of instances, this indicates that NYC plays a huge role in the book. But the city generally shades towards the later pages. Seeing that Patti Smith grew up in southern New Jersey, this makes sense. Next, we can click on a darker dot, such as this one, for 315 Bowery. It's only mentioned 6 times, but those are all very late in the book. 315 Bowery is, of course, CBGB's, and it makes sense that it only plays a role late in the story Smith is telling. If we zoom out to the South New Jersey of Smith's childhood, we see a predominance of light-colored dots, suggesting that while these places were important at the start of the book, they faded in importance rather quickly. This analysis is very rudimentary, but it also only took a few minutes to set up. It is our hope with NYWalker that the datasets can be used for more robust geospatial analysis in future projects. Thank you for watching this demo, and please contact us with any questions you may have about the software, or if you would like to use NYWalker to create your own dataset.